What's going on, folks? Welcome back to another episode of All Bets Aren't Created Equal. The moment has finally arrived. UFC 261, Kamaru Usman versus Jorge Masvidal. Number 2, it's the rematch. This time it's not happening on 6 days' notice, but rather 6 weeks. You know what I mean? They say, George Masvidal, give me 6 weeks and we're really going to make it happen. But those are his words, not mine. We got a real build up to this fight. And at the end of the day, this is topping off a slate full of great fights. This is a fight main card. We got the middleweight championship at the top, the women's strawweight championship in the co-main, and the flyweight championship, duking them all out. Three big fights coming up. And then we also got Uriah Hall and Chris Weidman and Jimmy Crute versus Anthony Lionheart Smith. So it'll be a good one. But before I break down all of that good stuff, which is what everyone is here for, I do need to talk about UFC Vegas 24. Robert Whittaker, the Reaper, Bobby Knuckles. He got the job done very convincingly, 50-44 across the board against Kelvin Gastelum in what appears to be a title eliminator, right? He secured the number 1 contender spot in the middleweight division, and it looks like the most likely outcome of this event, unless something crazy happens and Paulo Costa comes breaking through the wall like the Kool-Aid man, it looks like Robert Whittaker is going to get another shot at gold. The former champion will finally face up against the current champion for the second time and see if he's got what it takes to remove that belt from his waist or his shoulder or whatever you want to call it. But nonetheless, it's going to be a good one, folks. So Vegas went 7-3 at UFC Vegas 24. Real chalky again, but we did start off with about like 13, 14 fights, which got withered down eventually to only 10 fights. We had the infamous Jeremy Stevens, the little heathen, wasn't feeling Drakkar Close all up in his face. He pushed him. Close resulted injury turns into whiplash, concussion, a cervical spine sprain, some real tough stuff from just a push at the weigh-ins. But at the end of the day, the fighter's health and safety comes first. And we got robbed of a fight of the night. That was definitely mine and AJ's fight of the night over here on All Factors Considered. But nonetheless, GM3, Gerald Mearshart, he got a first-round submission win. Jessica Penne, she beat Lupi Godinez via, I believe it was a unanimous decision. It could have been a split decision, but nonetheless, the biggest upset, on the entire UFC Vegas 24 card was Jacob Malkoun, training partner with Robert Whittaker. He got the job done in a very, very grinder fashion. He got the job done against Abdul Razak Al Hassan at UFC Vegas 24. So, obviously, 3 times the underdog got the job done at UFC Vegas 24, which means that in UFC 261, there's a lot of value to exploit, man. So let me quit with the recap and actually get into this five fight main card. So let's rock. Usman versus Masvidal, number 2. We starting right here off at the top. Now, Kamaru Usman, he enjoys about a 4.5-inch reach advantage on game-bred Jorge Masvidal, 77.5 as opposed to 73. And listen, man, Masvidal, fastest knockout in UFC history. Kamaru Usman, real dog, defended his belt 3 times so far. He's underrated every single time. He's discounted every single time, and he proves the haters wrong just about every single time. You know what I mean? This dude is 18-1 in MMA, 13-0 in the UFC, 5-fight win streak. What can we say, man? What makes this fight any different than the first one, in all honesty? Because I took a couple notes. I did a little film study, and I wanted to see. I was like, all right, well, what really happened in this first one that makes people so hyped up to see Jorge Masvidal give it a second chance, to go and reclaim that gold? Well, Masvidal clearly has a speed advantage, right? He clearly has a timing advantage, and I think he's way, way more developed on the feet, that's what he does. This dude came up, with Kimbo Slice, street fighting, doing all of that good stuff, and at the end of the day, he's a decision machine, but so is Kamaru Usman. But we always call Usman a decision machine because out of his 18 wins, 9 have come via decision. Now for game-bred Masvidal, he's got 35 wins and 17 of those have come from decision. So it's almost half. So these two are both equally decision fighters, I guess you could say, in one respect or the other. But then on paper, it's basically the same thing, right? Because Kamaru Usman has 8 knockouts. So that's, come on, 18 wins, 8 knockouts, right? And Masvidal, he has 35 wins, 16 knockouts. So how is this fight going to play out any differently? Well, it just depends on if Kamaru Usman, in my opinion, it really depends because he's a minus 500 favorite with the comeback at plus 330 for Jorge Masvidal. It depends on if he has fallen in love with the hands. And that's the thing that you keep hearing is that, well, the champion needs to do what the champion did to get him to the show in the first place. And for Kamaru Usman, it's showing off some of that D2 national wrestling skills, man. He's a 3-time NCAA D2 All-American. So, he loves to shout that out and he loves to, take his opponents, put them back against the cage, put them on their butt and grind it out, foot stomp, all the good stuff. But if he wants to put an exclamation, excuse me, my lord, if he wants to really put that exclamation point on this fight because he feels like the first time he wasn't satisfied with the win because he didn't break Masvidal's will, well, if that's the case, then it looks like what he's going to need to do is to, really put him out, knock him out, hit him with big elbows, bloody him up bad. Masvidal was real bloodied up in the first fight, but those bloody incidents, the cuts, they really occurred from headbutts, incidental headbutts when they were wrestling, when they were grappling up against the cage. So Usman's going to need to do something to really be like, all right, Masvidal, man, I can't allow you to be in my presence as a rival anymore. But I'm going to tell you as a fan just what he needs to do to get the job done. If you want to demoralize him, if you want to take all the steam away from Jorge Masvidal, you need a 50-40 for him just like you did in the first time around. You need to put him on his back. You need to not allow him to get any of that striking off, and you need to just literally demoralize the man. There will be no more hype behind Jorge Masvidal, even though I do think he's a very incredible fighter, but there's not going to be that same bad boy hype, that same Scarface, that same, oh, I'm a killer. All I need is to, put one hand on you. I had 6 days notice the first time. All of that goes away if Usman completely dominates him. But that's the thing. So Usman, he had a very clear game plan going into the first fight, right? And that game plan was to kind of slip and get within grappling range of Masvidal so then he can, grab him, put his back against the cage, and put him on the ground. And literally what I just said, that's exactly what he did. But the only thing that's going to change here is going to see if is Masvidal going to extend himself into Usman like he did in the first fight, because what it reminded me actually was kind of Kevin Holland versus Derek Brunson, even Kevin Holland versus Marvin Vettori. When Kevin Holland's having all this success on the feet, when he's actually piecing up, Vettori or Brunson respectively, he ends up just throwing an extended combination and puts himself into grappling range of his opponent. So then his opponent grabs him and smothers him, put him on the ground, and there's nothing he can do from there. And Masvidal kind of did that against Usman. But the problem that we have here is if Masvidal says, I'm just going to be patient, I'm going to sit back, I'm going to relax. And if we have that counteracted with Kamaru Usman saying, okay, well, I've been training with Trevor Whitman. I've been popping this jab off something crazy. You know what I mean? That's what won me my fight against Gilbert Burns. I almost lost because I tried to brawl, and then I had to be composed, focus on the wrestling, focus on the jab. So if we have two people coming from more calmer perspectives as opposed to I'm going to dominate you and I'm going to dominate you, then we can see a real chess match here. And we can see Jorge Masvidal, who had a lot of success in his takedown defense going into this fight. And even in the early rounds of the first fight, we could see him not get taken down and utilize a strategy to keep this fight on the feet. But I do have to say, with all of that buildup, right, Usman did do something very smart in the first fight, which was if he couldn't get Masvidal down, if he couldn't keep him in the clinch, what he was going to do was pressure him and make sure that Masvidal didn't stay in the center of the ring for long. He ultimately had his back against the cage the majority of the fight, right? So I do want to look at takedown average per 15 minutes. For Kamaru Usman, we're looking at 3.2. For Masvidal, we're looking at 1.5. And listen, it's a 47% takedown accuracy for Usman, 59% takedown accuracy for Masvidal. But if your name is Masvidal, you want nothing with the ground. You want to make this happen. You want to keep it on the feet. But I'm going to be honest with you, man. Kamaru Usman, his last 4 wins: Gilbert Burns, TKO round 3, Masvidal, unanimous decision, but that was on 6 days' notice, so we'll, call it what it is. Colby Covington, TKO round 5, and Tyron Woodley, unanimous decision wins. Those are all had gold involved in these belts. Usman, you really got to look at it too. He's had another fight. I mean, it's only been one, but he's had another fight since the Masvidal fight. Masvidal has been on the shelf since he fought Kamaru Usman last, so it makes you wonder, all right, well, you didn't really get in there against anybody else. In your other wins, you beat Nick Diaz, TKO 3, which is a doctor stoppage. Okay, right on. Diaz isn't very active, right? So that was kind of your one-off. That's what got you the BMF championship. Ben Askren, he kneed his face into oblivion. Ben Askren just got knocked out by Jake Paul, so literally that one didn't age well. He was the first one to knock out Ben Askren, so he gets the credit, but it just didn't age well. And then, most impressively, he knocked out Darren Till in the second round. Beautiful. I believe it was like a switch right or a switch left hook or something crazy like that, but Till hit the ground hard, man. Gravity did him a disservice on that one. And then, in his last fight, within the last 5, he lost to Stephen Thompson with a unanimous decision, and that's when the resurrection happened. That's when, Game Bread really came about and, started really, getting a lot of shine, man. But these two both can switch it up very well, man, but I just don't see Jorge Masvidal unless he can stay composed and really strike at range and just work behind his jab. He has a really, really nice jab, so unless he can just work behind that jab and just strike it out, duke it out like that, The only way I can really see him winning here is if he just catches Usman and knocks him out. And even in the first one, though he did catch Usman a couple times, we even saw in the last fight against Gilbert Burns, this dude has a mean chin. Dude, his chin is just incredible. So like I said, minus 500 favorite, plus 330 comeback for Jorge Masvidal, plus 330 sounds good. Sure, there's value, but I just don't believe it enough to, even suggest anybody bet on that. And I wouldn't even bet on Kamaru Usman as a minus 500 because there's very, very little value in that. We're getting up to Valentina Shevchenko levels, which obviously we'll talk about in a minute, because in her last fight against Jennifer Maia, I believe she was like a minus 2,000 favorite, ended up losing a round and people started freaking out. But Usman, minus 500. I think that he is the play for this fight because at the end of the day, Masvidal is prone. You can't teach an old dog new tricks, right? That's generally, that's just generally the statement, the theory, the thought process. You can't teach the old dog new tricks. So what is he going to do? He's probably going to try to do what he does best and, piece him up on the feet. But if he just throws those extended combinations, it's going to be game over. I will just say this, though. If he wants to see if maybe he can put Usman away in the later rounds, what he needs to do in the early rounds is work the body, man. Masvidal has mean shots to the body, and he also, out of his southpaw stance, has a mean body kick. And he can land it on Usman because Usman switches back and forth too. So the moment Usman switches to orthodox, Masvidal goes southpaw and smashes that body kick straight into him, man, and starts beating it up, seeing what he can do, because he did get tired in the later rounds. Like I said, it's 6 days notice. So that's the only really big thing that makes us want to see this again, right? Is like, okay, well, he gets a full training camp, so maybe he could have, did something different. But I think Usman is the play all day long. He's a champion. The champ is going to stay the champion. If he gets the job done here, man, that's 4 straight title defenses. It's going to start getting real chalky with the man. But we just got to see if Kamaru Usman wants to do what brought him to the dance, which is what we would expect, which is what me as a bettor says, like, okay, well, this dude, you could talk all you want. Yeah, there's bad blood, whatever the case may be. But, he had real bad blood with Gilbert Burns, too. That was supposed to be all friendly. And, this was his homeboy from his training camp and all that. And yeah, look what happened, man. He says, listen, he tried to say he was going to take what I had. Come on, man. It doesn't get more personal than that. So I'm going to talk about props in a second, but we're going to go Usman on this one. I think that he edges it out. I think we're hearing and still for the main event at UFC 261. But, folks, I would not go money line. I do got a prop for you here in a second. Now, let's move on to Weili Zhang versus Rose Namajunas. We got Magnum versus Thug Rose. Magnum opens up at a minus 215 favorite, while Thug Rose is at a plus 165 comeback, a plus 165 underdog, man. Number one thing that we need to look at over here, right? Rose Namajunas, though she is a former strawweight champion, though, she kind of grew up in the UFC, at the end of the day, man, she only got 13 fights, right? She's 9-4. And listen, she's on a 1-fight win streak, right? She got the rematch against Jessica Andraj after getting slammed on her head and losing her strawweight championship after one title defense against Joanna Jędrzejczyk. But at the end of the day, man, we got 2 elite strikers. We got 2 of the best women fighters we have in the entire roster here. And what concerns me about this one is that it's an intangible, and it doesn't, I guess it's not the biggest point to make, but when we're talking betting, we need to take it in consideration, right? So Weili Zhang, 16 of her 21 wins have come in either China, South Korea, or Thailand, and that's not known to many people, though. I think we know that, yeah, she's the first Chinese champion, and she came over from China and whatnot, and her last 5 really has been, that's all her fights in the UFC is her last 5, right? And she got a title shot very, very early and kind of perfect opportunity. It's like one of those things where like the universe just lines up correctly. Rose Namajunas gets slammed on her head. Jessica Andrade becomes the champion, even though Andrade, let's be honest, and we can kind of talk about it in this matchup though. So Andrade versus Namajunas, number 1. Namajunas was piecing up Andrade the entire fight, but the only problem she has is every time Andrade would try to get in for a takedown, Rose Namajunas would grab an arm lock so she could use it as a defense. Well, round 2, round 3, Andrade is getting pieced up. She's bloodied up. She's getting frustrated at this point. What does she do? She says, I'm just going to pick you up, and regardless of your arm lock or not, I'm going to slam you on your head. And that's what she did. And Rose was knocked out and lost her belt. But Andrade was like the paper champ. She wasn't the real champ. We knew Rose Namajunas was winning that fight by a landslide. I remember reacting to it. I was like, oh my God, like, is that even legal what she just did? And of course it is. I just didn't want to see Namajunas lose. But at the end of the day, universe lined up so perfectly for Jessica Andraj, or excuse me, not for Andraj, but for Weili Zhang. So Weili Zhang comes in, fights Andraj, starches her in one round, knockout round one. And listen, now we got the champ, and now we're talking about one of the most unbeatable prospects out there, unbeatable champions, unbeatable contenders, right? That's what a lot of people are saying. And listen, man, I'm really high on Weili Zhang. I think that what we see on social media with her training regimen, what we see in the cage with her ferocity, what we see, you know what I mean, just like the way that she's picking apart these opponents, the way that she had that 5-round absolute war with Joanna Jędrzejczyk, and I guess this is a what have you done for me lately, because after seeing that performance, after seeing the hematoma on Jędrzejczyk's head, on her forehead, right? We say, okay, Weili Zhang is the baddest woman on the planet. And, like, that is totally fair and that's totally deserved. But there's a lot of people you could talk to who rewatch that fight, no commentary on, sound off, just really diligently focusing and watching, saying that I think Joanna Jędrzejczyk won the fight. You know what I mean? I think it's fair. I think that everybody's opinion is their own. But at the end of the day, it wasn't very conclusive. It was a very close decision. And it wasn't like Weili Zhang just completely starched Joanna by any stretch of the imagination. So with that being said, we get that one out of the way. That's the thing that really concerns me in this matchup, right? But there's a couple of things that both of these fighters can exploit. And I'll tell you what, for Weili Zhang, she does have a couple weaknesses. And if there's anyone that can exploit them, I mean, Rose Namajunas is the one, right? So Weili Zhang, man, she uses this calf kick out of her orthodox stance. She uses this inside calf kick. So it's very specific because most fighters, they like to just tap the outside calf with their rear leg. But what Weili Zhang will use her front leg, tap the inside calf, and use that kind of as a rangefinder and use that to actually even close distance, right? Because at the end of the day, man, her reach isn't very long. She got a 63-inch reach. Namajunas has a reach advantage by 2 inches. She got a 65-inch reach. And that's what she's going to need to do. For Weili Zhang, she's going to need to be able to disrupt and not just stay on the outside against Rose Namajunas, because that's when she's at her best. When she gets in that flow state and she just jab, left hook, jab, head movement, utilize that lateral movement, right? So we got someone who moves very laterally in a Rose Namajunas versus somebody who uses kind of more of this karate type stance, and like this, not karate stance, but this karate movement of linearly forward and backwards is more of Weili Zhang versus the lateral plus the in and out plus the head movement of Rose Namajunas. So that's the big difference here, is the head movement of Namajunas as opposed to just the center line nature of Weili Zhang. Weili Zhang eats shots. That's what she does, and that's why she's the champion, is because she has the ability to eat the shots. Now, Rose Namajunas, generally speaking, we don't really see her super bloodied up, but when she is bloodied up, it comes as a progression of a lot of pot shots, you know what I mean? Or it'll come as the progression of like 2 or 3 hard shots, like in the Jessica Andrade rematch. She didn't get bloodied up until about round 3, and when she did, it's because, I think it was like round 2 or round 3, but when she did, it's because Andrade just landed a perfect uppercut that completely just like shattered her nose. But that was like it. It was like 1 or 2 shots, as opposed to just constantly just pop, 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 pop. Like that's how Namajunas will do it. Very Max Holloway style. She's just constantly tagging you, constantly, keeping you busy, keeping on your feet, not letting anything go for free. And that's the big difference between these two fighters. Namajunas will not let anything go for free. Weili Zhang, she will work up these big extended combinations and oftentimes throw a big kick from the outside, or throw that calf kick and then double it up with a spinning back kick behind it, so that, their opponent gets shaken up with all of this pressure. Now, that's smart, and I'm not going to say it can't be exploited, but I will say against Namajunas, it might actually work, because the one time that we see Namajunas kind of, freeze up a little bit and not be so in sync with that flow state is when she has a constant pressure on her. So when Andrade, when she says, I'll eat a shot, I'm done chasing you around. I'll eat a shot. I'll eat 1, 2 shots so I can work my way on the inside and just start, dropping bombs on you, drop big right hooks to the body or big uppercuts or big overhands. Rose Namajunas started saying like, oh, okay, where do I go? I'm going back in a straight line, but I got to make sure to move laterally, got to make sure my footwork is right. So that's the one thing. And it's those panic situations, those situations where you're going to have to make your opponent think. And Weili Zhang can do that because of the resilience of her, because of her toughness. I just think she's so tough. And Rose Namajunas is very tough as well, and a little more composed. So ultimately, like I said, I talk about the arm reach, right? And I talk about how that can be exploited. But Weili Zhang uses a lot of kicks. She has beautiful side kicks, beautiful teep kicks, beautiful calf kicks all across the board. Now, Namajunas does as well, but she doesn't throw as much power behind them. So the calf kick will be interesting in this one to see who utilizes it the most to ultimately limit the mobility of their opponent, because we don't want too much lateral movement. The last thing Weili Zhang wants is another war like she just got in versus, Joanna Jędrzejczyk, where it's going to be close down to the judges again. again. If anything, she's gonna want to knock her out, do something crazy, because Weili Zhang, man, she's on first. I didn't even mention this, but I already said that 16 of the wins came in Asia. She's on a 20-fight win streak, man. 21-fight win streak, actually, right? She got the longest win streak in the entire division. You know, Kamaru Usman is the only other one. He's on a 17-fight win streak, like a beast, right? And Namajunas, she's got a lot less experience, but it's weird because she has less experience but more experience at the same time. So she's got 13 overall UFC fights. She's won 9 of them. And Weili Zhang has 22 fights, but only 5 of them have come from the UFC, and she's won all 5 of those. So technically, Rose has more experience, but less in the same capacity, if that makes sense. But nonetheless, we're here looking at it from an odds perspective, and that's why I had to break all of that down there for you so that you can kind of understand that this matchup is very, very close, but there's a couple of key things that are going to be the differentiations in this matchup. One being the ground game of Rose Namajunas as opposed to Weili Zhang. So for Weili Zhang, she lands about 6 significant strikes landed per minute. Rose is about 4. But when it comes down to the takedown, Rose is closer to about 2 takedowns per fight when Weili Zhang is about 1. And Weili Zhang, what she'll do is she'll shoot this crazy, like, unorthodox takedown and just try to drag her opponent down. You know, it just looks kind of weird. You know, she just throws her body at it and just tries to drag the opponent down. Rose Namajunas is so well-versed on the ground. She's so well-versed with her jiu-jitsu. She's a BJJ brown belt under Tony Basile. And she's a karate and taekwondo black belt, right? So she's nice on the feet, nice on the ground. And it's the moment she gets to the ground, she works the guard, she looks for a submission. If she can't get the submission, she kicks her opponents off and gets right back to the feet. So it's cool because she's one of those fighters who's kind of like a crazy Damian Maia who can just be like, I can throw whatever at you. That's where I prefer to be. But if you want to go on the ground, it's all good. Kind of like a Gilbert Burns, right? Now, Weili Zhang does not possess that same skill set on the ground, even though she does have 7 submissions on the ground. She's a BJJ purple belt under Pedro Jordao. You know, I don't know who that guy is, but, you know, listen, she's a BJJ purple belt, and we'll just call it what it is. I think Rose Namajunas has the advantage on the ground, but I think this fight is going to take place on the feet because it's what both fighters are most comfortable at the end of the day. And listen, man, she's still training at the 303 Training Center over in Denver, Colorado with Trevor Whitman, man. And Trevor Whitman and her other coach, Pat Barry, they're in a relationship and all that good stuff, man. It's a good foundation. But Rose Namajunas, it's just so tough, but I think that she is a very, very good play in terms of a money line. Now, I'm going to give you something a little bit better in a prop here in a second, but in terms of the money line, if there's any one of these champions, any one of these championships that can turn hand in this card, I think it could be this one, man. I tried to talk myself into the Usman one, but I don't think Masvidal. I think the wrestling of Usman will be too much for Masvidal. For this one, I think that Weili Zhang, when she leaves herself open in these big pockets, trying to throw these big extended combination, Rose could just come in and drop her with a left hook like she did against Joanna Jędrzejczyk, right? She can come in and use her timing to beat out the power of Weili Zhang, man. Namajunas is not as strong, but she is very, very talented, and her skill set is incredible, and her creativity and her striking is just impeccable. So I think Rose Namajunas, because she has a more of a well-versed game and because she has experience against higher level opposition. I mean, Jessica Andraj ×2, Joanna Jędrzejczyk ×2, Michelle Waterson. Come on, she already fought the Angela Hills coming up. You know, she's fought killers row over here. So I think for that reason, Rose Namajunas can make some damage, man. And I think as a money line plus 165 is a very, very valuable bet to take place here on UFC 261. So that's what I got for the co-main event. The women's strawweight championship, man, it's going to be a banger. And to be honest with you, this is my biased take right here. I don't want to see either of these fighters lose. But I know that whoever wins, all I know is we're seeing another rematch because that's just how it's going to go, right? This is the best of the best here. This is the best that the women's division has to offer outside of Valentina Shevchenko, which we'll talk about next, man. Minus 475 for Valentina Shevchenko, an individual who is on, I believe, she just solidified her 5th title defense, right? Valentina is a beast, man. Listen, she's on a 6-fight win streak. She's 20-3 in MMA, 9-2 in the UFC, and nobody can beat Valentina unless your name is Amanda Nunes, but that doesn't count because both losses that Shevchenko does have are against Amanda Nunes. But listen, we got Jessica Andraj, who I just talked about, right? But she's on a 1-fight win streak. She got the job done against Caitlin Chukagian, man. Beat her up in the body, had her turn around just wincing in pain. It was liver shots, man. Disgusting. But that goes to show how much of a powerhouse Andraj was, because I said she had no chance. I said Chukagian is going to pick her apart. What is Andraj doing? She's a 115-pounder. She's going to come up to 125. All right, we're going to see. And she proved me wrong, man. So this is the former strawweight champion. This is a BJJ black belt, 4-time performance of the night winner, 4 times fight of the night winner. And she has the most fights in UFC women's history at 18, man. So Andraj is nothing to play around with. And This is another one where I try to convince myself to see, like, okay, Andraj could have a real chance of defeating Valentina Shevchenko. But then I had to remember how we reacted to Jennifer Maia's performance against Shevchenko, right? So Jennifer Maia, she's BJJ wizard, right? She comes in, she's strong, she's big. She wins the second round against Valentina Shevchenko, and everyone just, loses their shit. They're just like, oh my God, I cannot believe this. Valentina's going to lose. That's literally the only round that she lost, man. Valentina handled her the rest of the round. She even won the first round, very dominant fashion. Valentina, man. Here's what's interesting about this fight, right? So like I said, she's minus 475 favorite, plus 325 comeback for Jessica Andraj. And Jessica Andraj, the one thing that we do know about her is that out of her 21 wins, she got 8 knockouts, 7 submissions. She's a finisher. She doesn't like to let it go to the decision, but she does have 6 decision wins under her belt nonetheless. Now, the thing that we need to take into consideration is that she's 4 inches shorter than Valentina. She's 5'1" when Valentina is 5'5". She has about a 3-inch reach disadvantage, but this is just generally the case for Jessica Andrade, especially when she moves up a weight class against even bigger opponents. She's going to have all these disadvantages. She doesn't care because she'll walk forward and she knows that she has more power than a lot of these fighters, and it's very clear she has way more power than Valentina Shevchenko. But Valentina Shevchenko is a technician, and that's the beauty behind it. You don't have to be the most powerful person when you know how to place your punches. You know how to put your strikes, your kicks, your knees, your teeps, everything, right? So Jessica Andrade, she added a lot of lateral movement and head movement after her fight against Weili Zhang. After she got knocked out against Weili Zhang, I think she realized, okay, I need to not be a sitting duck. I need to be able to move around, and that's going to be absolutely crucial when you're fighting Valentina Shevchenko, because a lot of the times Andrade, especially we saw it against Rose Namajunas, when she's trying to walk forward and trying to get into that striking range, she won't throw any punches. She'll just be in front of you, moving her head, trying to just wait, time a big shot. But Valentina Shevchenko will do the same exact thing. So what I think here is we're going to have 2 people staring in a mirror, but Valentina will be a little busier. Calf kick here, jab here, 1-2. And here's what's crazy about Valentina Shevchenko, man. I believe she's so confident in her skill set. So confident in her game plan that at the end of the day, when she fought Jennifer Maia in the first round, she took Jennifer Maia down, by countering her with a hip toss within the first minute of their fight and worked to ground and pound for the entire round. Literally had to get pulled off of her at the end of the round. She took down the person who was like, the clear game plan is to not be on the ground and to just outstrike this individual. She said, no, I'm just going to take her down. I'm just going to ground and pound. It's what it's going to be. She got out grappled in the second round, turned it back around 3-5 and picked her apart. Unanimous decision win. Now, she opened up that second round. Jennifer Maia opened up that second round against Valentina Shevchenko, which is what I think Andrade is going to have to do. She's like a DC, like a Daniel Cormier. When you're the shorter fighter, you have to walk forward. That's the only way that you have a chance, right? So if Andrade is going to be walking forward, Valentina Shevchenko is probably going to see that and probably attack her with some of those hip tosses as well. Try to get her to the ground, get inside control or get into the half guard or side control, and then just try to land the ground and pound, take her off of her feet, get her tired, and then let her strike in round 3, 4, 5. Because at that point, Andrade's not going to have as much pop on her shot. Valentina will be looking like Neo in the Matrix, being able to just see everything, move out of the way of everything. And the last thing you want, especially because she's so short, is a Valentina Shevchenko knee to your face or a kick to your face. Rose Namajunas landed a beautiful switch knee to Andrade's face in the rematch. It was incredible. And Andrade, she just got this chin, man. She got a chin of a chin. So if we look at her last 5, she knocked out Chukagian in the first round in her last fight. She lost split decision to Rose Namajunas. She lost to Weili Zhang, knockout round 1. She beat Namajunas with the slam and KO round 2. And then Karolina Kowalkiewicz knocked her out round 1, man. She's a killer. She's a finisher. She does not want to go to the decision. And at the end of the day, she only has 1 decision in her last 5 fights. Not all of them have gone her way, but at the end of the day, man, she is a scary opponent. But I think Valentina Shevchenko, man, she's defended her belt all 5 of her last fights. I think the first one was in J-Check. She actually won. That was the vacant belt that she won against Joanna. And then knocked out Jessica Liz Carmouche, who was very active, just got a big win in Bellator just like a week or 2 ago. And knocked out Caitlin Chukagian. And then, come on, UD versus Jennifer Maia, man. I think this is going to be a chalky one. Once again, money line, I would not go minus 475 on Valentina Shevchenko. But I do think that Andrade kind of has the perfect style for Shevchenko to just pick apart, not necessarily knock out. I think she could, if the stars align and the universe truly aligns, I think she could knock out Jessica Andrade. But at the end of the day, I think Andrade is just too tough coming from that Vale Tudo background, man. Listen, man, that's no holds barred. You know what I mean? That's like before this was MMA. This was no holds barred. That's what people referred to it as. This was the foundation, the early days. And out there in Brazil, man, you got killers. You got killer after killer out there. So money line wise, we're no value here for Jessica Andrade. I don't even know if I'd go No value on this one, folks. I'm just gonna call it right there, man. I want to say Andraj. It's the sexy pick. You know what I mean? It's kind of one of those where it's like, ooh, Andraj could really make it happen. But when you see Valentina defend her belt for the 5th or 6th time in a row, man, you're gonna see, okay, maybe I shouldn't have bet on that. So like I said, Rose Namajunas is probably the best chance of hearing and new on UFC 261 in my humble opinion. Now, I want to move on to these prop bets, so I'm just gonna break these last two down really quickly. Uriah Hall remains in my doghouse. The reason why is because even though he got a big win against Anderson Silva in his last fight, knockout round 4, it was like a TKO stoppage. This dude doesn't throw enough, man. He strikes at a 51% clip, which is very impressive until you realize he lands about 3 significant strikes per minute. So it's just does not throw enough. He needs to throw more. And Chris Weidman, former champion, you know, he defeated Uriah Hall back in 2010 for the 185 pound belt over there at Ring of Combat regional promotion. So this is a rematch, which I don't really hear many people talking about it, but this is a rematch. You're going to think Uriah Hall is going to want to get this back, but at the end of the day, he's a striker who's going up against a wrestler, not just a wrestler, but a former NCAA D1 wrestler, former middleweight champ, 3 defenses, man. This dude beat Anderson Silva twice. So if we're talking about the Anderson Silva Olympics, Weidman is up on that score. And listen, man, plus 105 for Uriah Hall, minus 135 for Chris Weidman. I think the odds makers are kind of favoring Weidman because he's a wrestler, because he's had a tougher hit list in his last 5. And even though he's coming off of a couple bad losses, right? Got knocked out by Dominic Reyes, knocked out by Jacare, knocked out by Gregor Mousasi, who's not even in the UFC anymore. He did get a submission win over Kelvin Gastelum. And, you know, his last one was against Amari Akhmedov. And a lot of people were like, oh, that was just a layup, just giving him Amari Akhmedov. Amari Akhmedov is a beast of a man. If you've ever seen this individual just in general or fighting, so there is no such thing as a layup when you're fighting Amari Akhmedov. But at the end of the day, he's 6'2", 78-inch reach, orthodox fighter, man. I just think that Chris Weidman is a dog. He's seen it all, done it all. So has Uriah Hall. Don't get me wrong. Uriah Hall is the man as well. But he does not throw enough for my liking. And it feels like he would have learned this lesson by now. Both individuals are 36 years old. But Chris Weidman, I think he just got a little too much of the dog in him and a little too much of the I'm a wrestler and I know how to win Dan Gable style, right? Shout out Dan Gable behind me, competitor supreme. He's got a little too much of that in him for Uriah Hall to spring the upset on this one. So Uriah Hall, 3-fight win streak, man, really feeling it. Bevan Lewis, Antonio Carlos Jr. no longer with the UFC, and then Anderson Silva no longer with the UFC. So those wins are looking a little, you know what I'm saying? And I'm not going to lie, before that one, he did get knocked out by Paulo Costa. So he's going to need a real definitive win to really make something happen here. But I think Chris Weidman is the play, minus 135. I would book that because I think he should be a bigger favorite, in my opinion. I just think people are looking at some of those losses that he's taken recently and being like, oh, Chris Weidman, end of the road. He's washed up. Yes, he's 36, but word on the street is a lot of those injuries that he's had in the past couple of years have been resolved. And like I said, man, you don't not trust the wrestler. Like the wrestler versus the striker, give me the wrestler almost every single time, especially when the wrestler can strike like a Chris Weidman. So that's what I got for that one. Minus 135. Let's book it all day for the All-American Chris Weidman. Now, lastly, we got Lionheart, the old Lionheart versus the young dog. Anthony Smith comes in as a plus 165 underdog, facing off against the 25-year-old young gun in Jim Crute, man. Jimmy Crute, 12-1 in MMA, 4-1 in the UFC. He's on a 2-fight win streak. 9 of his 13 career fights have taken place, though, in Australia. So he fought in this promotion called Hex, right? So it was Hex Fight Series. He was the light heavyweight champion, 2 defenses, and all of his fights prior to the UFC were basically in just Hex, right? But, you know, I don't know how much that matters necessarily, but I did think it was something to point out because Anthony Smith, man, 34-16 in his MMA career, 9-6 in the UFC, BJJ black belt, 5 times performance of the night winner, 1-time fight of the night winner, UFC vet since 2013, training at Factory X Muay Thai, man. I just think that Anthony Smith is being very, very underrated in this fight. Now, Jim Crute, this dude is a killer who lands about 4 significant strikes per minute at a 57% clip, which is incredible, but I think the reason why he can do that is because he doesn't throw that much, because his focus is on the wrestling, on the grappling. He averages 4 takedowns per 15 minutes at a 75% clip. So Anthony Smith, who normally has the ground advantage in all of his fights, I don't think he got it in this one, but I do say, and it's the time old tale of it's hard to bet against experience, man. I think that this is a obstacle, this is a wall that might be a little too high for Jim Crute to jump over at this point of his career, because you'll hear some opinions say, well, these two fighters are on different ends of their career. Maybe Smith is on his way out and Crute's on his way up. You know, he is a ranked fighter after all. I believe he's like number 12 or something like that right now in the light heavyweight division. But at the end of the day, We can't forget Anthony Smith, not too long ago, within his last 5, was challenging for a title. He got a big win over Alexander Gustafsson, which is, I mean, that's just a ridiculously huge win. Couple tough losses, right? Glover Teixeira, where Teixeira tells him, this is just business, man. You know what I mean? Like, that was a rough loss. TKO round 5. Loses to Alexander Rakic, unanimous decision, which is a fight where I felt like Anthony Smith just kind of went on autopilot in that one. But he got it back against Devin Clark in his last fight, submission round 1, which goes to show, just because you're a wrestler doesn't mean you're going to out-wrestle Anthony Smith here. But Jim Crute, man, like I said, this dude is just a young gun. He's spry. He lands the overhand right. He's got a big win over Mikhail Alexichuk. You know, tough name to pronounce, but this dude is coming off of a big win. He submitted him in the first round. Knocked out Modestas Bukauskas, you know, first round knockout, and knocked out Sam Alvey and submitted Paul Craig, man. So when you look at that, it makes it very convincing to want to go for Jim Crute in this one. But I'm going with experience. I'm going with experience on this one because plus 165 for the Anthony Smiths of the world. Like, if he loses this one convincingly, then it's going to be rough. It's going to be rough for him, and we probably are looking at a downward trajectory for Anthony Lionheart Smith. But at the end of the day, he's only 32 years old, man. This dude is in the prime of his career. He had some home burglary stuff that maybe was clouding his mind, fogging up his mind. Maybe he wasn't able to focus on the task at hand. And I think that he teaches a young gun a lesson this time around, man. I think that is very enticing to want to bet on the young prospects who are just going to dethrone these dudes. But Anthony Smith, if he was less of a prideful man, if he didn't care about doing things the right way, we would be probably talking about him as the champion right now. John Jones would never have left the 205 division because John Jones landed an illegal knee on Anthony Smith in their championship fight, which could have resulted in a disqualification loss. And listen, man, Anthony Smith is just no slouch, not a slouch whatsoever. So don't count out the man. Yes, he's only on a 1-fight win streak. Yes, he's had a couple bad losses, but at the end of the day, I think that this dude's power, his experience, his wherewithal is going to be enough to win this fight versus Jimmy Crute, who I do believe is more of a supreme athlete in this stage of their career. I mean, the dude's 25 years old, man. He's hungry. This is going to be a main card, UFC 261, huge opportunity. First fight back with fans, and that's another reason why I say that Jimmy Crute, the spotlight might just be a little bit too big. This is obviously, clearly the biggest test of his entire career so far, and in terms of Anthony Smith, this is just kind of another one, man. This is like, listen, he's John Jones, Gustafsson, Glover Teixeira, Alexander Rakic, and Devin Clark in his last 5, man. I mean, at this point, Jimmy Crute is just another name for Anthony Smith. Jimmy Crute is a beast of a athlete, man. He's killing the game right now. But I think we're going plus 165 money line for Anthony Smith. Now, folks, I am over the time, but it's okay because I'm going to give you the luxury of still giving these props out. And I'm going to just go over these ones really quickly, man. If you didn't like the minus 500 for Kamaru Usman, which I do not at all, I really like this prop. Go the distance, minus 175. It does not matter who wins because at the end of the day, all we're saying is if this fight goes the distance. Unless you think Usman is going to somehow, some way knock out Masvidal, who he couldn't do that on a full training camp. I'm not quite sure why he'd be able to do that. Or he couldn't do that on 6 days notice. I don't know why he would be able to do that off of the full training camp when Masvidal is coming in like really fresh and ready to go. So I think going the distance is a very, very fine proposition. Minus 175. Lock it in all day long. Now, number 2, I already talked about how we could go Rose Namajunas on the money line in and of itself, right? Plus 165 in terms of just money line for Rose Namajunas. But if you want to go Namajunas by points, which is what I think that has to be, like, I don't think a knockout is the only way that she could win. I think that she could clearly outpoint Weili Zhang, but she's going to have to do it by having some success on the ground. So if she gets that down, plus 350 for Rose Namajunas, I really, really like that one because it's going to be hard for me to envision a world where Weili Zhang just outpoints Namajunas just off of activity, just off of like counter strikes and things of that nature. Namajunas is the technician here as opposed to Weili Zhang coming in as more of the brawler, more of the powerhouse, more of the person who's looking to put a hole in somebody's face, right? And then lastly, I think this one's chalky, right? You know what I mean? I'm not going to lie. But Shevchenko, minus 475. We don't want that. But we want Shevchenko. We want value in Shevchenko. So for that reason, we go Shevchenko by points because let the history tell it, man. Shevchenko is 20-3. She's got 6 knockouts, 7 submissions, and 7 decisions. Now, she is a former kickboxer. Very incredibly decorated kickboxer with the overall record of 57-2. Now, let me tell you how many knockouts she had in her 57 wins in kickboxing. Only 4 knockouts, man. She's She's a decision fighter for the most part, and in her last 5, she's only got 2 knockouts that came to Caitlin Chukagian and Jessica Ai, and I think both of those fighters have way more fragile chins than a Jessica Andraj. I think Jessica Andraj is going to be one of the most powerful fighters Valentina Shevchenko has matched up with to date, and one of the fighters who has the strongest chin. Now, I'm not doing any props for Uriah Hall versus Weidman or Anthony Smith versus Jimmy Crute because I gave you guys the money line. I'm feeling really, really good on the money line on that one. And at the end of the day, folks, like I said, UFC Vegas 24, Vegas went 7-3. We're hoping that changes. We got a lot of fights on this one, but the main card is what really matters, and that's what I got for you this time around, folks. So I do want to give you a friendly reminder. If you like the shows, you know what I mean, that we're putting on, you enjoy the show, well then subscribe, hit the little yellow notification bell and subscribe, because when you do that, you get access to all 3 of the shows we put on every single week. This betting show, All Bets Aren't Created Equal, and our All Factors Considered preview and post show. Every single week, we're making it happen, making it live, you know what I'm saying? Me and my co-host, AJ, we watch a lot of film study, and we just try to bring the value that we can to the people who actually care about the fights. Not the Jake Paul, Ben Askren nonsense. Yeah, we might have to cover that or whatever the case may be, but the real fight fans, the hardcores, not the casuals, man. So give us a follow on Instagram at All Factors Considered, or go check out the website. You see it right behind us, All Factors Considered. There it is, www.allfactorsconsidered.com. Folks, none of this stuff would be possible if we didn't have the attention, the engagement from the fans, from the supporters, from all the good folks over there. So tune in. It's going to be a pay-per-view. So, when you tune in on Friday to our preview show, we will have some sleepers on the free portion of the show, so you can enjoy those ones as well. You don't got to pay for everything. It is expensive being a fight fan, but at the end of the day, that's all I got for you, folks. So until next time, peace.